The Obama administration has made it as plain as day. America opposes efforts to admit Palestine to the United Nations as a state. But some U.S. allies aren't so sure. Chief among them, the United Kingdom. I sat down with the British Prime Minister David Cameron for an exclusive, wide-ranging interview. What is Britain's position on this? Should they be admitted?
Well, our view is very simple. We want to see a Palestinian state alongside a secure state of Israel. And we want to see that on the ground, not just in UN resolutions. So our approach here at the UN will be to use the leverage that we have to try and maximise the chances of talks getting going again, leading to the creation of that state.
Do you think that they should be recognised?
I think, look, of course, they should have a state. They should be then recognised as a state. That is what needs to happen. But I think we have to be very clear. The only way, in fact, this can come about is for the Israelis and Palestinians to sit down and to agree the state and its borders and its security and the security and safety of Israel. That's the only way it can come about.
Let's talk about Libya. Britain and France led the liberation of Libya. You were there with your...
Well, let me correct you. The Libyan people led the liberation of Libya. We were there to help.
Could it have happened without NATO?
No, I don't think it could. There were countries like Britain and France that were prepared to step forward and ask their brave service personnel to fly missions over Libya, to drop bombs on Gaddafi's tanks and to stop his war machine in its tracks.
How do you prevent Libya from becoming Iraq?
From everything I've seen of the National Transitional Council, they want to be national and transitional. They don't want to descend into tribalism or extreme Islamism. Second point, this isn't Iraq, partly because the Libyans have done this largely themselves. You don't have the vacuum that was there in Iraq that led to such a problem.
Gaddafi, he's still there. He's leading some kind of insurgency. What do you think is going to happen to him?
I think strategically it is over for the Gaddafi regime. Obviously what I want to see is Gaddafi brought to trial, perhaps in his own country to start with, but the ICC rules are there as well, so that he faces up to the crimes that he committed against his people.
Let's switch to the economy and to what we all saw in England during August, the riots on the streets.
Well, first of all, I don't think it was in any way linked to the economy. These were not protests, they were not political arguments, they weren't political demonstrations. It was quite simply looting. It was criminality.
You've instituted austerity measures. The economic growth is not there. People are saying now, as they look at austerity, that perhaps your governments are focusing on the wrong thing and it should be about growth and employment. What do you say to that?
Well, we obviously need growth and employment in our country, and actually the British economy has grown this year. We have created jobs since the election, particularly jobs in the private sector. But the key point is this. You have to remember that Britain was forecast to have a bigger budget deficit than Greece. It was forecast to have the biggest budget deficit in the whole of the G20. If we hadn't got on top of our deficit and shown the world we had a plan to make our economy pay properly for itself, then we would have seen interest rates go up, we would have seen confidence sapped out of our economy. You can see in other parts of Europe where exactly that has happened. We have to understand this is a debt crisis. It's not a traditional cyclical recession where you just turn on the money taps. You've got to deal with the debts. You've got to show the world you can pay for your debts, as well as having a very strong growth strategy.
Another huge spotlight on England over the summer was the Rupert Murdoch News Corps, News of the World phone hacking, and you were front and centre in Parliament talking about that. Has, as you said, James Murdoch still got questions to answer about this? And secondly, do you believe this is the end of the cosy relationship that's existed between your government and previous governments and the Murdoch empire?
Basically, the answer to both is yes. On the second point, I think the relationship will change. I think it has been too close, too cosy. As I put it, too much time was spent, understandably, courting not just whether it was the Murdochs or News International, but also everyone from the BBC to the Guardian newspaper. Politicians are always trying to get across their message and win plaudits from the media. But I think we spent too much time on that and not enough time on working out have we got the right regulatory framework to deal with media abuses. And we don't. We need to change that, and that's one of the things that the review will do.
All right. Prime Minister, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Thank you.